Hey, this is Jim Bergman with TruTech Tools, and today we're going to go over the Bacharach INSIGHT Plus combustion analyzer. We had a lot of guys asking about the features of the INSIGHT Plus. New instrument for Bacharach, completely redesigned, and we thought we'd take and go through the entire instrument today, walk you through all the key features of it, how to use some of the diagnostic features, and let you get a little bit more intimate with this instrument. So when you get the INSIGHT Plus, it comes in a really nice hard case. You got a storage place up top for your probe assembly, storage place for the instrument. You're going to get your two sets of batteries, one set for the printer if you get a printer kit, and one set for the instrument. And it also comes with software to manage the data and also configure the instrument. So you get a USB cable, some particulate filters for the water trap, and we get a set of instructions on how to configure and operate the instrument. At first glance of the Fyrite INSIGHT Plus, you're going to see a lot of improvements over previous generations of Bacharach models. First thing you notice, they got a full color display on here, and that color display is completely user configurable. So you can change everything from the icon size to what order the things show on the display. Also, because they've incorporated the color display, they're able to do some things with some real-time graphing and plotting and some productivity tools to basically make the technician be able to troubleshoot the combustion process much quicker. Another really cool thing they did here is they recessed all of the connections down inside the instrument. So if you drop this thing on the ground, you're not going to have to worry about damaging the instrument or breaking off any of the probe connections on the bottom. Huge improvement over previous instruments you might have seen. Really easy to use or configure. Again, they got simple arrow keys to navigate the menu structure. The green key is the enter key in the center. An escape key to get out any menu you're in. Backlight key, run hold key. Push the hold key, it stops recording and go back and review what's happened up to that point. So overall, you're going to see some major improvements in the operation and construction of this product. Another really cool thing they did is they actually went to a higher range sensor. So now the instrument contains a 4,000 ppm sensor. And what they did that's unique is they calibrated it at the low end of the range. So the sensor is calibrated with about 200 ppm CO gas. So you get really high accuracy in the low end of the range, but you get that extra protection at the high end range of the instrument. The probe assembly for the INSIGHT is pretty similar to all the other Bacharach probe assemblies you might have seen. Again, it's got the water trap integrated into the hose set, and they give you a really nice long hose set for a couple reasons here. Number one, so you can get back behind a burner or back behind a boiler if you're doing your air adjustments in the front. But the other thing is we need to make sure that this water trap hangs straight up and down so that we don't get any moisture into the O2 cells of the instrument. When you look at the connections on here, these, even though they look very close to the same, are actually sized differently so that you don't get your draft hookup and your flue gas hookup confused. And then we have our K-type thermocouple here for a stack connection. So it's pretty much a simple integrated probe Bacharach's used for a long time with just a little bit longer hose assembly on there. And then we got our adjustable probe stop here so we can set it up inside the flue, get it centered in the flue pipe. And it looks like about a 1/4 inch probe shaft here to measure the if you need to drill your hole to figure out what the hole size is for the stack. All right, when we configure the INSIGHT Plus, really what we want to do first is plug in our K-type thermocouple, and that is polarized, so you want to make sure you put the plug in correctly. Plug in our draft and plug in our gas sensor port in the bottom, just like this. Okay? The reason you want to plug these in first is because the instrument actually goes through a self-diagnostic and a calibration when you turn the instrument on. And if we don't plug it in, it's going to go through a full minute of warming up when we do that. If we turn it on now, we're going to push the power key, helps. It'll go through, it's going to go through its countdown, so it's bringing up the menu in the software version, and then it's saying warm up 58 seconds, but we're not going to go completely through that 58-second period. It's going to give it enough time to zero out the O2 to fresh air, so it'll take it to 20.9 and purge any gas out of the CO cell. It's going to go out and check, make sure there's a stack thermocouple plugged into this, and once it goes through that initial configuration, it'll pop out of here, so it should pop out about any time now, and we'll see it go into the warm-up mode. So 2, 1, 0, and now we're into the measurement mode, and we can start a combustion test. All right, so once the instrument comes up, you're going to get it into the measurement screen here, and I thought I'd just take a second and go over how the instrument's actually configured. And really what you've got here is F1, F2, and F3 are actually soft keys now. And they're basically driven off these menus right here. So we got the print, the menu, and the save button right here, where we can either print that information, go into our configuration menus, or we can save that information to one of the storage spots in the instrument. Once you enter here, you have keys for left and right, up and down, and the center key is your enter key. You have your escape key, which moves you up and down in your menus, and then your run hold key, which will bring you back into your measurement menus after you've made any changes. One of the most important things I think on the instrument that you need to initially configure is the post-purge period on there, because it comes set to factory default to none. So if you just hit the menu key and you scroll down here to get to the setup, you press enter, scroll down to come to the purge, which I might have passed it. There we go, post-purge period, hit enter. You want to set that to 5 minutes, which that's what I have it set for. If you wanted to change that, you can go up or down. 5 minutes is the minimum time I'd recommend. If you are a little less conservative than I am, you might set that to 10 minutes to make that a little bit longer. But I'm going to set that to 5 minutes. I'm going to hit enter, and then I hit the menu key right here again. It's going to take me back to the fuel menu. And if I hit it again, you'll see it's not going to do anything until I press the run hold key, and that's going to take me back into my measurement menu where I can actually start doing my combustion test. Earlier I was talking about how user configurable the Insight Plus is, and I really wanted to show you some of the things that we can do with this to make it work exactly the way we want it to work. So if you go in and you hit the menu key, which is the F2 key, and I go into the setup here, scroll down to setup, hit enter, I can go through and I can configure any one of these units. So I got temperature units, which comes factory set at degrees Fahrenheit. My pressure units, which is factory set at inches of water column. If I'm in energy auditing and I want to change it to pascals, you know, it's simple enough to do. I just go into pressure units, hit enter, scroll down to pascals, hit enter, and now it's configured. As soon as you hit enter, it goes back to the setup menu so you can configure the next piece you want. Now I'm going to work back in inches of water column, so I'm going to go ahead and flip that back up to inches of water, hit enter, and it's configured. Now, I can configure the clock, hours, minutes, seconds, hours, however I want to configure my clock so it reads the way I want it to read. I can configure my O2 reference, which is typically used for European standards, so for most of us here, we're not even going to deal with that. I can configure my print pressure, so if I want to, like, in this case, I can turn it on or off, yes or no. And basically what that'll do for me is if I want to print out like my fuel pressure, if I use the analyzer to measure fuel pressure and I want to print that out, I can print it on the printout with the rest of the combustion readings on the display. So I have that set to yes. And then going down below that here, I've got my zoom and then test ID, username, run hold format. So let's say I want to go in and change my display, because right now it's a 5-line display, and sometimes you're a little bit further away from the analyzer and you want to make it easier to read. So I hit enter in my zoom. I can go in here and I can have standard, which is a 5-line display. 2 times means it's just going to zoom in on the display. So now instead of a 5-line, it's going to drop to a 4-line display, a little bit larger font. And then if I go to 3 times, it's going to zoom in again, and it's going to make it a 3-line display, and again, easier to read. So I'm going to take this down to 3 times, hit enter, and now if I go back and press my run hold key, which is going to drop me back to my measurement menu, you can see that instead of a 5-line display, I have 3. Now again, all the rest of the information's there, so when I scroll down, you'll see it drop down just like we'd expect it to. Now efficiency's at the top, except I just see less of it on the display. So it allows me to set up exactly the way I want it. So if I'm, want to take it to a 3-line, 3-line, 4-line, or 5-line, I can have as much or as little information as I want showing on the display. If I go back to the menu and scroll down here, a couple other things here. This is a calibration menu, a diagnostics menu. So if I go into my diagnostics, I can look at my time meters and look at how long the meter's been running. Main diagnostics, the O2 sensor life. So a lot of things in here that I can look at, and I can see all the way into good here because it's a brand new analyzer. A lot of things I can look at, configure exactly the way you want them. A lot of depth to the menu structures on this instrument. Not only are the user display and the units all configurable, we can also configure the order that we want things to show in. In this case, it comes factory set for O2, CO efficiency, CO2, and the stack temperature. But I can go in and change that to make it set up the way that I want it to look. So in this case here, I go to the menu. I'm going to scroll down again to setup, and I'm going to scroll down until I get to the run hold format. Just like the run hold button shows you, run hold everything on display, it's run hold format. It's going to show us that menu. So I can go in here and edit that format, and I can change these to whatever I want in whatever order I want. So if I really like to start off with stack temperature, I'm going to hit enter here, and I'm going to scroll till I see stack temperature, temperature stack, hit enter. Then I want CO, okay. Then maybe I want to put O2 here, hit enter again, configure that to O2, hit enter. And then maybe I want here CO air free, hit enter. And you're going to see this come up a little different. This is actually CO with respect to oxygen. So it's same thing, CO air free or CO undiluted. It's calculated value, hit enter. And then scroll down again. Now we already have temperature stack in there, so maybe I want to show my efficiency here. Scroll back up, hit efficiency, and then I got the temperature of the air, the excess air, and here's my CO corrected, so undiluted. So I'll put down here, what else do we have left?
CO2.
CO2, enter, and then I got pre, which is my pressure, enter, and then to none. There's a couple open slots here, and these open slots are simply for European configuration. In a basic US test, we have a lot less information on the display than we might if we use the Siegert formula. So Siegert's going to show you your net efficiency, your gross efficiency, your oil derivative maybe. So there's open slots here if the instrument's configured differently, or if they do any firmware upgrades in the future that you might be able to add some additional tests in here. When we're done with that, we hit edit complete. We can go back and we're done. If we want to now look here, you can see I got the temperature stack, CO, O2, CO exactly, CO air free, exactly the way I set the instrument up. If I want to return back to factory configuration, just hit the menu key, scroll down to setup, scroll down to the run hold format, go to reset format, hit enter, reset format yes. And when I go back to the run hold key, I'm back to the factory configuration. So you can screw around with this all you want. You don't have to worry about messing anything up. You can go right back to the factory configuration. But the great thing is with this is that I can set it up to see what's really important to me. All right, so let's get this instrument in the stack gas, and we'll get a look at some of the other menus and things that it does. And so we're going to go ahead and put this in, and whenever you're doing, this is a category 4 vent again, so you want to make sure you're not leaking flue gas into the space. So you definitely want to use the probe stop in here. And these are all threaded, so we're going to go ahead and screw that in there and lock it in place. I usually just take it to the back of the flue pipe, pull it out towards the center, and just lock that in. And so now we can start doing our combustion test. I'm going to go ahead and get the furnace fired up, and we'll show you what we can see on the display. Okay, so we have the 90 plus furnace here going through a post purge, and I'm going to go ahead and push the run key so we can look at the response of the instrument. And the pump started on the instrument. You can see our O2 is starting to bounce around a little bit right there. Stack temperature starting to increase, which is all a good indicator that we're actually starting to make a measurement. There goes the burner, it just lit off. And so you get an idea about the CO response time or the instrument response time here. It does have a fairly long hose, so it does take a second, but once the gas gets into the sensors, it goes very, very quickly. Some of the lines down at the bottom, you'll see they were dashed for a minute, and that's simply because those are calculations, and until the O2 gets down below 16% or so, it's not going to start to make any calculation at all. And you can see there we had a nice high peak CO reading. But you may wonder, well, what was that? Because maybe you weren't paying attention as it went by. And here's where the analyzer really shines. They've done a lot of things with the menu structure. So now we're looking at all our regular combustion readings. But if I go ahead and hit the right side of the display, I can actually see a trend now of how that CO actually looked. And right now I have it set up from 0 to 5 minutes. And so now maybe I want to change that so it doesn't quite look so sharp, or so I can get a little bit better idea what the readings were. I can hit the options key here, scroll down to line graph time, change that to maybe a minute because we haven't been running that long, hit enter, and now I can get a better idea here. We're close to 600 ppm of CO when it started, and we're definitely trending in a downward position. Now I can take any single parameter that I want to trend, whether it's O2, CO, CO air free, whatever I want to trend, and I can trend it on this bar graph. For a lot of you guys out there, you're probably going to want to trend your CO reading, so you can look at things like a rough light off or maybe a shutdown that's on an oil furnace that's maybe dripping after the burner shuts off. But it allows you to trend that out and see just about anything you want to trend on that. We can also hit the right arrow again, and now I get into my dynamic display here where I've really got a go, no-go bar graph. If I'm a company owner and I really want to show, you know, what's going on here, and I'm going to zoom in just so you guys can see this a little bit better here on the display and try and refocus this. I can see right now I'm at 103 parts per million. I'm just about ready to go through, and now I'm in the green zone. If I've got a young tech, or even if I just don't quite understand all the relationships of combustion, I can configure this up to a go, no-go for anything I want to run. So right now I have it set for 5 and 10.5% O2, and that's actually a little bit high on O2, and I'm going to go ahead and change that right now. So I go into the limits, and it pops up O2. And now I want to set my upper limit is maybe fine at 10%. That's 100% excess air. But I want to change my lower limit maybe to 3% oxygen. So I'm going to scroll through here. And when I get down to the 5 here, I'm going to drop down 2 to 3, hit enter. And now that stores it. You can see I changed it to 3 and 10.5%. And my CO, I have, I believe, set up for 0 to 100. So I'm going to go ahead and check that. And I'm at upper limit's 100, lower limit's 0. Now, that looks good right there, so I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And let's say that I wanted to change that maybe from CO to CO air free. Well, actually, that's what it is right now, CO with reference to oxygen. So that's actually exactly where we want to leave it. Now, I want it maybe stack temperature. Well, you can see right here, for a 90 plus furnace, this is a problem because obviously it's not going to reach up in the 580 degree range. This is a condensing appliance, so we're going to have to lower that down. Well, maximum temperature we want to see on a 90 plus is about 120 degrees. So I'm going to change that upper limit here to 120. Oops, we'll go back up to 1, 2, and 0. And you can see how I have a lower limit exceeds upper, so I definitely have to change the lower limit. My lower limit really should be my return air temperature and no lower than that. So I'm going to go to 80 degrees. And maybe I'll leave that 80 is probably fine, and I'm going to hit enter. So now you can see if I'm a company owner and I say, okay guys, I want you to measure these things. I want to make sure that your O2 is between 3 and 10%. I want to make sure your CO is configured so that we're not above 100 parts per million. I want to make sure on a 90 plus furnace that stack temperature is between 80 and 120. I can tell the guys exactly where to configure it, and as long as the arrows end up in the green, I'm good to go. I can walk out the door and know that my system is safe. I can also scroll back here now, and I can look at my CO trend and CO air free trend, and I'm going to go ahead and change this again to a little bit longer of a time here. Line graph. I'm going to take this out to, let's say, 5 minutes. Hit enter, and I can see that my CO was trending downward or the entire time I'm doing my test. So now I can make sure that, you know, several things are exactly the way I want them. CO, although it had a little rough light off, is trending downward, and CO is not changing the entire time I'm doing my testing. That's exactly what I want to see, a nice smooth transition on the CO line. You can see that's nice and steady. I can see that I'm in the green on all these things. My O2, my CO, my temperature, stack temperature, which are the three that I'm concerned with. Then I can go back in. This is my hotspot and my stack, so you can see it was 117 was the highest my stack temperature was. That's probably right before my blower came on. And then back to my regular menu where I can say, okay, you know, O2, CO, whatever I want to look at, scroll through all the readings and make sure that they're where I expect them to see. Okay, hopefully you got a little bit of insight to all the features of the Insight and how it works. Just for the sake of time, I do want to do a second video on this that shows how to do the draft measurement, how to use the hotspot measurement, how to print out the results, and how to use the instrument for differential pressure and differential temperature. There's a lot of features in this instrument that we need to go over still, but the video is going to end up being too long if we do that. Probably the key features on this thing that I want you to walk away with is that the Insight has a lot of really good productivity features, including the trend display where you can see things like peak CO or peak efficiency or anything else you might want to see a trend on. It also has the bar graph display with a go, no-go feature on there, which is really good for technicians when you really don't understand how all those things work together and how they're all intertwined. It allows the owner of the company to say, hey guys, I want you to set it up this way. And when you go out, if you see anything in the red, to give me a call so I can come out and help you and make sure that we don't leave anything that wouldn't be safe for the consumer. That's a really good feature on this instrument, and it's something I think a lot of guys will get a lot of use out of. But keep an eye out for the second video. If you got any questions, feel free to post them on the YouTube channel. Appreciate you taking the time to watch. This is Jim Bergman with TruTech Tools. Thanks a lot for watching.